The door slammed hard enough to rattle the dishes in the cupboard. And silence fell. Not a calm one. That silence that comes a second after a shout, when the air in the room is still ringing. The child went quiet. He stands and looks at the floor. He isn't crying anymore. He's just gone very still. As still as children get when they decide to wait out the grown-up. His wife says nothing. She learned long ago that in moments like this, it's better not to speak. And the man stands in the middle of the kitchen and suddenly catches a strange, cold feeling. He's afraid. Not for them, for himself. He looks at his own hands, still clenched, and one thought beats in his head. Is this really me now? Am I really this kind of man now? He didn't want to shout. 5 minutes ago, he was an ordinary, tired man who had just come home. And then something rose up inside, faster than he could notice it, and swept him along. The trigger was tiny, toys on the floor, or the tone someone spoke to him in, or just one more question at the end of the day, one he had no strength left for. But it blew up as if it weren't a trifle, but a match struck next to something that had been building inside for a very long time. And now he stands in that ringing silence and doesn't recognize himself. Sound familiar? Then let's talk, calmly, without judgment, because what you just thought about yourself, I think I've turned mean, I think my character is going bad, is almost certainly untrue. And today I'll try to explain what's really happening to you. This is the channel Second Wind. Usually we talk here about pain, about loss, about how to endure. Today, about anger. About the very irritability that comes with the years and that a person is most ashamed of. And I'll say straight away what I stand against. I don't believe in the advice, just control yourself. Count to 10. A real man doesn't snap. Anger is toxic. Crush it inside. It's all the same old story. Notice an uncomfortable feeling in yourself and press down harder. Counting to 10 is sometimes useful, so you don't do damage in one particular minute. But it isn't a cure. It's like taping over a warning light that came on in the dashboard. You put out the light. The cause? No. Anger isn't an enemy to be defeated. Anger is a signal. And today we won't press on the light. We'll try to read what it's lit up about. Anger is a watchman, not your character. Let's start with the main thing. And if you snap more and more often, don't rush to conclude that something is wrong with you. Anger is a guard. It stands at the border of what's dear to you and switches on when something threatens that border. Its job is simple: to report that somewhere something is wrong, that you've been hurt, that no one has asked you in far too long, that you're at your limit. And here's the important thing to understand. The watchman starts shouting louder not when you've become angrier, but when he's gone unheard for too long. Every time you snap, it's not your character going bad. It's the watchman trying to get through to you again. He isn't knocking for the first time. You just didn't hear him before. And there's the main thought we'll keep coming back to all through this talk. A man rarely turns mean in a single day. He turns mean when, for too long, he stops hearing himself. You just endured too long and didn't notice how full you'd gotten. Let's take the most familiar case. A man asks his child to put away the toys. The first time, calmly. The second time, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and on the sixth, the blast. A shout that freezes the child in place. And it seems the problem is the sixth request. That there, they pushed him too far. But the cause isn't the sixth request. Inside, it had been building for a long time, since the morning, since yesterday, since last week. Sometimes the child really did just forget. Sometimes he's still little, and his attention works differently. Sometimes he simply can't do otherwise. But at some point, the adult stops seeing the child. He sees only his own piled-up irritation. And he's no longer shouting at the child. He's shouting at everything at once. At the tiredness, at work, at the lack of money, at this whole endless day. The child just happened to be the last drop, and now he stands in front of that flood, not understanding what for. The signal finally broke through, only it wasn't you who heard it. It was the child. Anger has different faces, and it matters to tell them apart. The first, the hot outburst, a flash, a shout, a sharp word, a slammed door, loud, visible, shameful. This is usually the face people mean when they say, "I've become irritable." The second, cold anger, quieter and often more dangerous. The man doesn't shout, he goes silent, answers in single words. Everything is clenched inside, and outside, icy politeness. Sometimes it wounds those close more than shouting, because there's no way to talk it through. The third, background irritation. When it doesn't burst, but shakes all the time. Everything mildly grates. The sound of someone chewing, a slow cashier, your own kids. The man lives like a bare wire nobody should touch. His household starts to feel a man like that with their backs. The kids learn to check his mood before coming with a question. His wife softens any news in advance. A quiet tension settles in the home, as if everyone is walking on thin ice. And the bitterest part, he himself usually doesn't notice. It seems to him he's just tired. And beside him, people have already forgotten how to be calm. Different faces, but under them, most often, the same thing. Something important has gone without your attention for too long. Why shame only adds fuel. Notice what a person usually does right after an outburst. He's ashamed. He scolds himself. Pull yourself together. What kind of father are you? What kind of husband? He gives his word it's the last time, and presses down, shoves the anger deeper so it won't be seen anymore. And a week later, it all repeats, only stronger, because shame solves nothing. It just turns down the volume on the signal without figuring out what it's shouting about. You forbid the watchman to make noise, but the reason he's making noise stays right where it was. And next time, he shouts louder. He wasn't heard. You get a closed loop. Outburst, shame, suppressed, piled up, a stronger outburst. And with each loop, the man is more sure something is wrong with him. But he's fine. He's just fighting the wrong thing. He battles the warning light instead of looking under the hood. What this watchman is really shouting about. Let's go deeper. Most often he's shouting about one of four things. First, you're simply depleted. The most common reason, and for some reason the last one people consider. Behind an outburst, there's almost always a tiredness the man hasn't admitted. When you've slept, eaten, exhaled, you're hard to set off. The same bit of mischief from a child brings a smile. But cut your sleep for a few nights, add work, worry, bills, and the same child sets off a flash. The child didn't change. Your reserve changed. In a depleted man, the border runs right at the edge. Nudge him lightly, and he's already over the line. And you know what's almost funny about it? A man can spend a whole week thinking, I've probably become unbearable, mean, awful. And then he simply gets one good night's sleep and discovers to his surprise that he isn't awful at all. He just slept 4 hours. Often, I've turned mean translates very simply, I've been running on an empty tank for too long. Sometimes you seriously decide your character has gone bad, and your body in that moment seems to say, "Friend, maybe you should just sleep first." Second, for years you didn't say no. There are people who are convenient their whole lives. They agree, they carry, they help, they don't argue. And inside they store it up. Every unspoken no doesn't vanish, it settles. And one day that whole warehouse of the unsaid bursts out, as a rule, in the wrong place and at the wrong person. You know how it looks? A man does someone else's work in silence for half a year, says nothing, it's awkward, and then blows up because somebody set a mug down wrong. The people around are baffled. It's such a trifle, but it's not a trifle. It's the bill for half a year, finally presented, just not to the one it's owed. Anger here is the no you didn't say in time. It'll come out anyway. The only question is, as a word or as an explosion. Third, inside you there's ungrieved grief. This is less obvious but very important. Sometimes under the anger there's no anger at all. There's pain that was never mourned, a loss you rushed past on the run, a parent who was gone and there was no time to grieve. You had to hold the family together. A dream you quietly buried and forbade yourself to remember. A hurt you supposedly forgave but never actually lived through. The unwept doesn't dissolve on its own. It turns into irritability. It seems to the man that he's angry at his wife, at work, at traffic. But really what aches in him is the thing he never let out through tears. One man buried his mother and went back to work 3 days later. He held up. Everyone praised him. Well done. Strong. And half a year later, he suddenly started yelling at his son over school grades, though before he'd never even raised his voice. He didn't understand what was happening to him. But what was happening was simple. Grief that wasn't let out in time found itself another way out. It always finds one. Sometimes behind "I've turned so mean" stands a very simple truth. I'm in a lot of pain, and I never cried. Fourth, you've lost the sense that you run your own life. This is maybe the main one after 40. When a man feels that nothing depends on him anymore, that others decide for him, that the rut can't be turned out of, the powerlessness inside doesn't sit quietly. It turns into anger. Often over small things, because there's no strength left for the big ones. A man can't affect what's collapsing at work, a loved one's illness, the fact that life went somewhere off. But he can yell about dirty shoes in the hallway, and he yells. Because here at least, for 1 second, he feels again that at least something is in his power. It's not about the shoes. It's the voice of a man who stopped feeling like the author. And anger is the last thing left to him of the sense of strength. Why it hits especially closer to 40. At 20, a man has what feels like an endless reserve. Slept badly, recovered in one night. Had a fight, forgot within the hour. The reserve is so big you can't see the bottom. And then life starts taking in large amounts all at once. Work you can't quit anymore. Kids who need you. Parents who've suddenly become like children themselves. A body that's begun to fail for the first time. Bills. Tiredness that a weekend doesn't fix. And all of it. Every day. No intermission. The reserve that seemed bottomless at 20 runs low by 40. And the demands on you, greater than ever. There's the whole secret of the spoiled character. The character didn't spoil. It's just that for the first time in life, the load became bigger than the resource. And where there used to be a gap, now there's none. Any push, and you're already over the line. It's not old age and it's not decay. It's overload. And overload isn't cured with shame. It's cured by taking part of the weight off you and getting back at least a little reserve. Now, 2 honest clarifications. Without them, all this can be misunderstood. First, not every anger is about your tiredness. Sometimes you're angry because you were genuinely wronged. You were betrayed, used, a line was crossed. That anger isn't a malfunction. It's the normal reaction of a healthy person to what shouldn't be. It doesn't need curing. It needs to be heard, and to defend what was violated. You can tell them apart like this. Signal anger is proportional to the trigger. Overflow anger is when the reaction is 10 times bigger than the trigger. If a cup makes you shake, it's almost never about the cup. But if you're calmly and firmly angry at a real injustice, maybe you've finally heard yourself. And second, very important, there's a line beyond which this is no longer a talk about a signal. If your anger frightens you yourself, if it becomes scary for those close to you to be near you, if there's an urge to hit, to break, if you don't recognize yourself in the rage, this isn't a topic for a video online. This is a reason to see a specialist. And there's no weakness in it, no shame. It's the same as going to a doctor with a pain you can't relieve yourself. A grown man doesn't play the hero with something that already threatens the people he loves. And here's one more thing, a bitter one, but it has to be named. Anger almost never reaches the one who caused it. You won't yell at the boss, you'd lose the job. Letting a stranger have it costs you more. And the whole charge built up over the day, the man brings home, and discharges it on those who are closest, on his wife, on his kids, on his parents. Not because they're guilty, but because they're near. And because, the hardest part, they won't leave. With them you can snap and stay. It's the trust we somehow spend worst of all. A familiar picture, a hard day, a humiliation from the boss he had to swallow in silence. The man drives home, and the whole way everything boils inside. And at home, his wife asks something perfectly ordinary. "What's for dinner? Did you get bread?" And receives everything he stored up in himself all day. She won't even understand what for. She just opened the door at the wrong second. It's worth noticing at least once. The person you just yelled at is usually not the cause of your anger. He just happened to be in the room when you overflowed. There's one more layer, deeper than any psychology. We were often taught that being angry is shameful, that a good person, a believer all the more, doesn't get angry at all. And a man starts to fear his own anger, to hide it, to press it down. And from that, the anger only goes deeper and quietly rots him from within. But here's the astonishing thing. The Bible nowhere says, "Do not be angry." It says otherwise. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. The letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 26. Which means the anger itself is not yet a sin. The question is what you do next. You can be angry at injustice. You can defend the weak. You can set a boundary. You can tell the truth to someone's face and not sin. Or you can use that same anger to humiliate someone weaker, to snap at a child, to punish someone close for your own tiredness. And that's already a completely different anger, even though the feeling inside seems the same. Even of Christ, the gospel says that he was angry when they traded in holy things in the temple. But that was anger for what was desecrated, for the truth. Not the discharge of tiredness onto the weak, not a breakdown from powerlessness. Anger for the sake of defense, not for the sake of power. So, the question isn't whether there's anger in you. There is, in every living person. The question is another one. Which of you rules the other? You, it. Or, it, already, you. Anger isn't a sin. The sin is to hand it the wheel and let it decide for you. The moment of choice comes before the blast. Almost everyone starts dealing with their anger too late. When it's already become a shout, a slammed door, a child's frightened face. When there's nothing left to decide, only to be ashamed. But the real moment of choice passes much earlier. long before the blast. Back when a mild, still very quiet irritation rises inside. The first small signal. In that minute, a very simple truth is born inside, if you let it be heard. I'm having a hard time right now. This is unpleasant for me right now. I need rest. It's time for me to say no. If you hear yourself then, at that quiet signal, it may never come to the blast at all. A watchman you let in the door isn't driven to break it down with a shout. The whole trouble is that we're used to skipping that quiet signal, enduring it, paying it no attention. And we hear ourselves only once we've already yelled. Now let's come down to earth, because without a concrete step, all this turns back into plain guilt by morning. I won't tell you count to 10. I'll give you 3 actions. First, in the moment, don't press it down and don't spill it out. Name it. When you feel it rising, there's 1 second while you're still a person and not a flash. In that second, ask yourself one question. What am I really angry at? Not, how do I hold back? But what is this really? Are you tired? Have you been pushed over, not for the first time? Are you in pain, not in rage? The naming itself knocks off the autopilot. An alarm that's finally been heard stops ringing so loud. Sometimes it's enough to honestly say to yourself, I'm not angry at you, I'm just at my limit. And your hand already isn't reaching to slam the door. Second, find the real addressee. In the evening, with a calm head, go back to today's outburst and ask, was the trigger proportional to the blast? If not, look for what the bill actually came due for. Write it down in 1 line. I haven't slept enough for 3 weeks. For half a year, I've been dragging out something I should have said long ago. I never grieved my father. I don't feel that anything in my life depends on me. You'll be surprised how often the real cause has nothing to do with the victim of your shout. Third, give the need a voice before it explodes. Anger is a request that went unspoken for too long. Say it while it's still a request, not an explosion. Tired, say so plainly and take rest, without waiting until you snap. For years you didn't say no. Pick one spot and say it this week, calmly, once. An unlived loss inside. Let yourself finally grieve it. Talk to someone you trust, or to someone who helps with this professionally. Lost the sense of the wheel. Take back one stretch where you decide, even a small one. At first it will feel unfamiliar and even awkward. Your whole life you handled it differently, stayed silent, endured, and then either snapped or swallowed it back. To say out loud, I'm tired, or this doesn't work for me. For many grown people, that's harder than yelling. Shouting is more familiar than a calm word, but it's the calm word that diffuses the bomb before it goes off. The point is one, don't store it up to the blast. Let it out as a word, while it's still a word. Remember the man in the kitchen? The one who stood in that ringing silence thinking, is this really me now? He didn't turn mean. He simply carried more than he admitted for far too long. And the watchman inside finally shouted himself hoarse, trying to be heard. His character didn't spoil. What overflowed in him was what he hadn't let out for years. He simply went too long without hearing himself. And if tomorrow evening he, instead of drowning it in shame again, quietly asks himself, what am I really angry at? For the first time in a long while, hell hear not an enemy. Hell hear himself. Maybe the problem was never the watchman. The problem is that the owner went too long without opening the door. Open it. Ask what it's guarding. And maybe it will turn out that you're not a mean man at all, that you just tried to be strong for too long, and didn't notice that a strong man, too, sometimes needs rest, the right to say no, and the right, one day, to honestly admit, I'm having a hard time. Very often calm begins not when a man stops being angry, but when, for the first time, he honestly answers himself why he's in so much pain. Don't promise yourself it'll never snap again. Just next time, before the shout even rises, catch that first quiet signal and ask, what am I really angry at? If this conversation was useful to you, you already know what to do. I'd be glad to see you among the subscribers, and if it's not too much trouble, leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long. Sometimes even a simple thank you is enough. To me, it says this conversation wasn't in vain. And for the channel, it matters because that's how YouTube learns these videos are worth showing to more people. And of course, the classic thumbs up. Thank you for watching to the end. Until the next conversation.